Hey everybody, Nathan Long, president of Quest Trust Company for our educational series. I hope you guys have been enjoying these. Today's just a little case study. I like case studies. To me, it's like story time. And we call it profit, pitfalls, and everything in between. I like to try to tell some good stories because everyone always tells great, big, good stories, and how people made a whole bunch of money. That's fun. But it's also fun to look at sometimes the people that made mistakes and what they did to them and what we could do to avoid those things. Sometimes we can learn a lot from the bad investments people make as well. So here's some stories on both. I hope you enjoy them. Again, everything we do at Quest is just for educational purposes. We're not trying to give tax, legal, or investment advice. We're trying to provide the proper education so you know how to make your own good decisions about things. We don't sell any investments. We must be a neutral party, and we must also process of investments that are given to us. So make sure you're taking the time to do your own due diligence and understand your own pitfalls dealing with self-directed IRAs and the things that could happen. Also, this class has a very little bit about the education and what you can and cannot do with the self-directed IRAs. I have those in the other classes. They're out there a lot. So this is mostly just story time. I'm going to talk about some things some people did and some fun stuff, and hopefully you enjoy it. I really like to do that. So, but again, our education services are always free, whether you're a client or not. We've got free stuff on the website. You can pick up the phone, talk to an IRA specialist. That's free. So if you have any questions about any things or didn't understand something I said, or say that feel like something that you heard might be in conflict with something else that you heard, that's just great. We love to explore those type of things and look into all those type of details with you. Hopefully this helps broaden your knowledge a little bit. Again, a self-directed IRA really isn't a type of IRA. We just hold private assets while other companies are licensed and they hold publicly traded assets. And they're licensed to sell you those assets, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, all the stuff that you're familiar with. Most of our clients have an account in both places. You don't destroy your relationship with your financial advisor. He's just part of it. So you do the strange stuff with Quest, buy your real estate and do your notes, and the other stuff with your broker, and we can transfer back and forth. All types of benefits of having it, including diversification, allows you to diversify into actual real estate and other things. Tax savings. I think that anytime that we're talking about these types of wealth building stories, we always need to build in the benefit of tax savings. Just making money and paying a bunch of taxes is not nearly as much fun as making a bunch of money and not paying any taxes on it. So hopefully some of that happens today too. But I also think that it's important to understand that a lot of the investing that takes place and that you listen to in these stories and others does have a social aspect to it. And what I mean by that is when these investors are investing, we're often investing in our own community, raising funds from our own community, taking blights in our community, making it a better place, which in turn, sometimes when you buy like mutual funds, you may be casting a wide net and catching a whole bunch of different companies so that you can deal with all the market fluctuations and you're offsetting that. But in doing so, you may invest with companies that may not be aligned with your ethical or your political intentions. So if you think about it, some of these stories that I'm going to tell have some interesting social benefits to them. I'll talk a little bit about those as well, right? And allow you to invest in things that you know and understand how to do. So there are all different types of accounts that can be self-directed, not just Roth IRAs. I love to talk about Roth IRAs, but traditional IRAs and Roth IRAs. We also have like employer plans for people who are self-employed, have small businesses like SEP IRAs or simple IRAs, or even solo or individual 401ks. And you can even have self-directed health savings accounts or Coverdell education accounts. Those are extremely fun. Highly recommend my class on those because it's one of the best classes out there to learn about health savings plans and how they go and work. And I have some education that's online for all of those different types of plans. And you can invest those plans either separately, but you can also partner them together, which is a lot of fun to do, is to take it, because a lot of times you have a small IRA or a little health savings account, you can piggyback it on the back of another investment, as long as the investment money comes in exactly split up to the way it was invested, which is a great way to do some of these types of things that we're going to be talking about. Little quick information, a little bit of quick stuff. I know most of you've probably heard all of that before, but just trying to get you through it. Again, you can invest in just about anything at Quest here. We have different departments, like a real estate department, a private entity department, and a notes department, allowing you to invest in the different things. Right? Okay, I'm all excited now. It's story time. Case study 1. This is what we got to. I got through my introduction. I get to start to talk about stories. I feel like a grandfather here. I guess I have to settle on that because I don't have any grandkids yet. Still waiting on those from my boys. So what to do with a small account? How about this? All right. This is a funny story because it starts out and I'm giving a speech like I did a long time before the COVID. Instead of just talking here in my office at home, I would go out and give speeches, and I'm giving a speech and I'm all excited and waving my hands and doing my thing. And there's a guy in the front row and he's like this the whole time. Like he's mean mugging me. You know, he's got his arms crossed and he's just doing the straight out mean mugging all the way through. And get down to the thing. I say, oh, anyone have any questions? And sure enough, whoop, his hand goes straight up. I'm like, oh God, here it comes, you know, in front of 200 people. And he goes, and I don't forget, it's like, Nathan, cut the crap. I listened to you speak before and I got excited and I opened an account and I put some money into it, but it just wasn't enough to buy any real estate. You know, so I was like, okay. So in front of everybody, I'm like, okay, well, you know, what's your name? He says, well, I'm Howard. And I said, so Howard, you have a small IRA. Let me ask you a question. You know, I was at a real estate club, so I was like, do you have any other deals? Do you have anything? No. And he kind of softened at this point because he was getting to talk about himself. You know, that kind of happened. And I found out that, yeah, he said, yeah, I have this house. And he's really excited. He put it under contract for $12,000. The houses in the area we're selling for $140 to $160. And I was like, great, Howard, sounds like a great deal. What's wrong with the house? He says, it's burnt to the ground. And I started to laugh. And he says, but wait. For me, I'm buying the house basically at lot value, but it's not really a burned down house. There's a slab there and there's, you know, pipes and there's electrical stuff. And I could build a house on that a lot cheaper than I can build a house just starting out from the ground. And I have people I know that will do these in experience. It's not me out there swinging the hammer, but I could, you know, I can do this. Howard was an guy. He's like, you know, I know how to contract that out to some contractors to do it. And so I said, oh, okay. So that sounds like a pretty good. I said, what do you think it's going to cost you to do the rehab on the house? And he was like, oh, about $60,000. I said, okay. So I said, so Howard, what's the problem? He says, well, he says, well, obviously I only got $6,000 in my account. And I said, well, do you have any other money? He said, yeah. He had some other money. He had $6,500 or another $6,000. He could come up with the $12,000 between his IRA and himself to make the deal. He ended up making another contribution to the IRA, so it was all in the IRA is what it ended up, or what he should have done. But that's not what he did. He partnered half himself and half his IRA, and he put the house under contract. That's what I got across to him. And he said, yeah, I could do that. The problem is I don't have $60,000 to fix it up because it's an unusual type of repair thing. A normal bank's not going to give me this type of loan like I could normally go to and get and stuff like that. So I literally just turned to the crowd and the people were in, and I said, listen, is there anybody in here that would be interested in doing this, right? And I was like, would you loan Howard the money if I could show you how you could end up with half of his profits, but be secured? Because instead of actually handing Howard the money, you would escrow it out to the different contractors that he chose over the time. So that way you knew that the repairs were actually getting done. Guy in the back of the room said, yeah. He said that he would do this. All right. And I looked at Howard. I said, Howard, is a half a deal better than a whole deal? And so I kind of got the two guys together and got them talking. And this is what ended up happening. Okay. Howard took his IRA and his personal money and he put them together and he purchased the house. He then did an equity appreciation loan, secured note and deed trust, full thing, right, on the property for the repairs. Here's the kicker. The other guy, right, that was using his IRA had $60,000 in his traditional IRA. He was listening to my Roth conversion class. And what happened with that is he did convert that and pay the tax on it, which was a penalty while I was doing this. But in the end result, this is what happened. His Roth IRA got $6,000 back that he had put into the deal and ended up getting $21,000 in profit. The whole deal took about 1.5 years because he had to build it, they had to list it, they had to sell it. All, you know, there was permits involved in there. So it did take a while. It took about 1.5 years, right? That's what Howard's Roth IRA ended up getting. Howard himself, the person who put $6,000 into the deal, got his $6,000 back and another $21,000 in taxable profit in his pocket. Howard was happy with that because he was about ready to let this whole deal pass. Other investor who put money in and ended up converting it, he had put $60,000 into the deal. He had got his $60,000 back in 1.5 years and made $42,000 in tax-free profit in that same amount of time. Sign me up. I thought it was a pretty good deal. And it was a deal that Howard was going to pass on. And so I just have to laugh at that. Sometimes the answer is right in front of our faces. Here we are in a room full of people, all able to fix each other's have, wants, and needs. And it just needed somebody to like facilitate a little bit of this to realize that these two people probably could get together and help each other. It was very enjoyable for me as an instructor, you know, and it's kind of funny because I run into Howard out there now, and he no longer is like Mr. Old Crunch. He's all happy to see me, and he's like one of my applauders. So it's cute. So I enjoy that. So another good strategy is in that situation, rather than just let the deal go, Howard could have wholesaled that to another person in that audience as well. I see that happen a lot. So just things to think about. Never let a deal go until you make sure that you can. Okay. How about this one? I'd like to say Roth IRA turned into $10,000 to $277,000 in profit. Another fun story. Yes. Got to have some good ones to start it out with. This one's true. And it goes back in time a little bit, but it's important that we're looking back in time on this because I think that this is really relevant to things that are current right now, right? Sometimes you can see things better from the past. But what was really amazing with this guy is he did some very effective social change. Here, I live in Houston, here in a certain neighborhoods in Houston, and this is how he did it. All right. He would find areas in what we call the 6th Ward. It was a rougher area of Houston, still is, you know, it's more transition, much more transitional now. It's gone way up in value. And he'd stake off like a block, whole block, and stake it all off. Okay. And he would try to buy every house he could, repair it, fix it, just make that one little block as nice as it possibly could. And he was really good about it. He was also really interesting that he could use a lot of materials that he would use during tear downs to like he could find old windows and banisters and things that he could use as he reconstructed new houses. So he really gave it a feel and a look that this neighborhood had never had, and he did it one block at a time. Some of the homes were very modern, some of them were this. You know, he is a very, very good builder in doing these things. How he ended up funding a lot of his projects is he used self-directed IRAs, right? He would find people that he was connected very well to people in his community there, and he'd use people that had retirement funds and would borrow those funds secured by real estate, fully with a note and deed of trust, and taking good care of them, paying them interest. He funded how he built into the neighborhoods. And what was really interesting, he always had this view of what it would look like years down the road when it would be done. And I remember going with him and thinking he was crazy. I was looking at some of this stuff and like, oh my gosh, but when he was done and you go through those areas now, the houses are selling at $750,000 and up. And, it's really a nice area, and the change is very, so back to the story. So what happens he's in there, he's working his neighborhood, and he did all types of things. He'd loan money to the businesses up front, like if there's a 7-Eleven or something, so that they could have some money to clean up and make, the entrance into the neighborhood look better and stuff like that, some restaurants and stuff, But so when people would get in trouble that lived in this area with certain types of real estate and things, they would come to him and be like, hey, I need some help. All right. So this woman came up and she was behind on her taxes and was about ready to lose her home. Okay. And he went to her and he says, okay, what is it that you need? She's like, well, I need enough money to be able to pay my taxes, and I need to be able to live in my home for a couple of more years. At the end of 2 years, I'm moving him with his daughter or something, and the rest of the story. And he says, okay, well, how much is the taxes, right? She said, well, they needed $10,000 to catch up the taxes to keep it from going into foreclosure. And she's like, if you'll buy this property for $10,000 and just let me live in it for 2 years, I'll sell it to you for $10,000. But I have to be able to live in it for 2 years. I said, okay. Goes over and looks at property, and it's scary to him. And the thought of having a renter living in this type of condition would be really scary. And so that what he instead said is, what I'll do is I'll let you keep your property. I'll pay the taxes and you pay the $10,000, and you sign an option where you're going to sell that property for me for $1 2 years from now. What ended up happening is over the course of that 2 years, he had been busy. Up and down that block, they were fixing up houses, the prettiest little houses you ever did see, right? They'd fix them up and make them look nicer and nicer. Matter of fact, that area went through a boom, and it got to a point where the lots and the house were very valuable. This house that was on the particular lot was not worth anything besides having it removed. Like I said, maybe preserving some of the special parts, like preserved old wood and things like that. But other than that, it had to be removed. So what happened, truthfully, is the woman was upset about the property. She said, this real estate investor is taking advantage of me. They actually went to court, but he did prevail and ended up owning the property. He ended up selling the property for lot value at $325,000. There was some expenses related to going to court, by the way, and some other things. So he only ended up netting, poor him, $277,925 from his Roth IRA. And I like to tell a story because I love the fact that he's using his own neighborhood, his own resources, his own connections, and teaching people how to help themselves. And if you don't believe that happened, all you have to do now is go through the 6th Ward in Houston and take a look at some of these houses, drive through some of the neighborhoods. I know there's some people watching this that are going, yeah, that's true. This is going on here now. I know my compliance officer was very happy with the new house that she just bought in that area. So again, these profits he made were completely tax-free because he did them in a Roth IRA. He started with a little account, turned it into a big account, and he continues to invest self-direct to this day. Let's see. This is cute. This is a good story gone bad, as we call it. My brother, Quincy, when his daughter was young, he started some investments with his daughter in her Coverdell education account to cover for her expenses. So they had this pretty good little property they were able to buy. It was in Michigan. Yeah, I know you say Michigan, but not like in Detroit or something. It was outside there. They were buying it for $44,000. It had 3 acres of land. It was a nice home, 1,800 square foot, and they were able to immediately rent the property for $1,250 a month. The property is worth much more than that. It's gone up in value. All right. What he did to come up with the money, he partnered his IRA and his wife's IRA, his buddy Jody, who lives up in Michigan's Roth IRA, and his lovely daughter's Coverdell education account. Now, Coverdell education accounts work like this, guys. You only get to put a little bit of money in them, $2,000 per year. You don't get a tax break, but all the growth happens tax-free. you know, and they can be used for all types of expenses. Watch our class about Coverdell education accounts. You'll be blown away about how flexible it is. But sometimes using the wrong account can make a mistake. Fast forward in time, 12 years later. All righty. The property is doing great. Matter of fact, the exact same renters are in it. They've also kind of done self-improvements to the house, and the value has gone up. Yay, us smart real estate investors. Except Brianna has in the meantime grown up, already been to college and gone off to school. And where is a lot of the asset that we put aside, or the original amount that we put aside? There was some rent money that came off, but that original amount is still tied up in this very long-term good investment, right? Whereas she really needed it to send her to college now. So sometimes, you got to think about the timeline of an investment. If you're going to need money before then, it didn't really make sense for her to sell out of the investment because it was such a good investment. So what are her options that she can do now? She's got a couple. Coverdell education account, she can keep it all the way until she's 30. And since she is going to probably continue to get higher education all the way up to 30, she can use it. So if the house sells before 30, she'll get that money and we can use it for then. And she is still getting the rents that come off of it to help as she's going through some of her college there. But what's the other part of it? Is that she can transfer education accounts to another child. If she has her own child, she can do that. Or her sister just had a child, so she has a niece. She could even transfer it to that niece. So it's not exactly that, but it's a funny story of thinking about sometimes what the investment is. They had the intention of making it a long-term rental, but didn't really think about it that far ahead as to when a good investment that went bad. Whew. Here's a good investment that went bad in a lot of ways, right? One of the big problems I often see is I see people waiting too long when something goes wrong in order to try to fix it. And that's what I want to try to adjust here. And often, we see it with retirement accounts. And I don't know why. It's just something that's like, it's almost like a mental block. You do it yourself. Like, you had your 401k and you looked at it at work and the stocks are doing really good. And then it kind of had a bad year and you shut it up and you threw it in a drawer and you look at it next year. You know what I mean? But when you're self-directing, that type of attitude, that could be really, really dangerous, all right? So look at David's story, all right? David lent some money secured by a first lien drafted by an attorney, right, to a real estate investor, which you believed was good at what he did or whatever, had reason to believe it. They closed at a title company, and they did all of the things professional. Ended up lending, good job on the start of this, David. He, because he didn't do a tabletop closing or something else. First lien, the liens were filed, everything was fine. Okay, all right. The only problem, he lent to Sinister Sam, right? Sam was not quite the legitimate real estate investor that he had portrayed himself, David, to be. Though he had done the proper due diligence at the beginning, the properties he was going to purchase were good properties. He had checked to make sure the value was right. Like I said, he used the right things, but when it came time for the first payment to come around to the lender, he said that he was having a little bit of problems making the first payment on the loan due to some things, right? But not to worry, that he was going to take care of David, in every way. And he would Senator Stan would communicate this to David. And he continued to have problems, and this went on for a little bit. Let's fast forward in time. Yeah, 5 years. 5 years before he received a payment on the property. So what had happened is after not receiving payments for a long time, Sam calls up and says, all right, I'm sorry, I messed it all up. I'll give you a deed in lieu of foreclosure. David said, okay. So he did. He signed over a deed and took it, but he never turned over the keys to the property, right? He said, I got to do a couple of things to get things out or whatever, but don't worry about it, David. I'm going to take care of it, and I'm going to pay you back anything else you owe. This guy must have been a thing. David like, oh, okay, right? Though deeding the property, still he maintained possession, and in the meantime, the taxes aren't getting paid, right? Though he was telling David that he was paying the taxes, and the property is about ready to go up for the tax foreclosure sale. That's how far this has gone, okay? And literally, this guy is still collecting rent. David thinks everything's all right, but there's a notification sent to Quest Trust Company. Quest Trust Company, we called up David and like, David, we noticed that you've got this property, you've got these properties that you put hundreds of thousands of dollars in that are going to go to foreclosure. We got this notice. What's going on, buddy? Thing. All right. He said, well, he called up Sam, and Sam said everything was going to be just okay. I swear. With the foreclosure sale looming, he's about ready to use something, right? What happens is we invite him to come in and talk to us, and it's kind of funny that night that David was supposed to come in and just chat about his account a little bit, and we weren't given tax, legal, investment advice. We just had noticed that this was odd, that this account was going through these things. He was late, and there was a class going on, and the IRA specialist was tied up that he was supposed to talk to, and he ends up having to talk to Quincy, our CEO himself. Quincy came out of his office and sat down with him for several hours and fussed at him, basically. All right. We discovered some things. David's never even looked at the houses. He doesn't know if there's insurance on them. After 3 hours, Quincy convinces David to take some action, right? David keeps insisting that Sam's going to take care of him. He's going to pay all this stuff off. Well, Sam never did, right? There happened to be a networking event going on in the background, and on his way out, he met a real estate investor, Scotty, a person Quincy had known a little bit for a long time. The thing. Scotty offered to go to the property with him, right, and offered to help. He was a CPA and an experienced real estate investor, and he has a really good, strong reputation. And so Dave and Scotty went and looked at the properties. They discovered there's no insurance on the properties. One of them had a fire in them and needs a rehab. So it's a fire damaged property. One has renters in it, but when he knocks on the doors, the renters are complaining that the house needs a lot of repairs, but they've been here for a while and they can't get the other guy to thing. The properties are subject to back taxes, and David doesn't have enough cash in his IRA to cover it. So basically what ended up happening is Scotty bought one of the houses from him and helped him kind of manage how to rehab the other two so that he could sell those properties and get them back up to shape. So the worst one, the one that had the burned out kitchen, Scotty bought that. He helped the other two get update. He left one of them in his IRA, and to this day he still has it because that renter stayed in there and continued to pay rent. He sold the other one, but ended up recouping most of his money, but never was going to regain that 5 years of loss. He just lost it. And you might think, oh, well, David was just a dummy, but he wasn't. He was a smart guy that just let things get away from him. He's got, life happens. You get busy in life and things happen. So I guess one of my advices is if it is going bad or you have one that goes bad, dust it off of the drawer, get it out, call one of our IRA specialists, talk to them. We can't give tax, legal, or investment advice, but we could talk to you about, things that we've seen people do and concerns and other things, and maybe give you some ideas on how to have some choices out of a situation. Again, hopefully these stories are fun for you. My name is Nathan Long. I'm the president of Quest Trust Company. If you would like more information, some good ways to get a hold of us is You can just email IRA specialist at questtrust.com. You'll get a full-fledged IRA specialist online. Here's something else a lot of people don't know. During business hours, we have a live chat on our Quest website. That's actually manned by our IRA specialists. They're at their desk, and it's a great way to ask questions as well. Or just call us at 855-FUN-IRAs. Thank you, guys. Hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you enjoy the rest of our education series here at our Quest Education Center.